We're very much committed to see how we can manage these tensions, of course, without sacrificing our positions. And so that's something that we are very much committed to. The President has said that many times, that we seek, where possible, to apply, whenever possible, really, diplomatic means and peaceful approaches to settling whatever disputes or even whatever activities or events happen. And certainly we're concerned with that. But at the same time, we're also determined to defend our sovereign rights and our sovereignty, especially in our exclusive economic zone, because our activities in our economic zone, exclusive economic zone, are legal.
You've quoted President Marcos's sentiments on the South China Sea. He's also talked about the red line. I was just wondering, how is the Philippine domestic people's sentiments on this, given that the red line brings to mind ideas of war in the event of a Filipino death in the disputed waters?
Well, you know, what we really mean is that we are there to defend our sovereign rights. It's in our Constitution. All presidents of the Philippines have to defend the sovereignty of the country, and especially our territory. So that's really something which is embedded. Any president would have to defend that. And that's the main message there.
Now, China has always slammed the Philippines for its assertiveness, transparency, and every time there is, say, conflicts in the South China Sea, ASEAN is very concerned that things will get out of hand. Can I get your assessment of this policy, both in terms of managing the Philippines' claim as well as regional security on the maritime sphere?
Well, I think the transparency is merely meant to show the truth, what is happening. Because if we didn't show that, then one side will say this, another side. It's quite clear what's happening. And it's quite clear that we were just there to assert our rights. We were not threatening any particular country. And I don't think there was nothing there that could be seen as illegal. All we were trying to do in some cases is resupply our troops on the ship or guide our fishermen. Yet we were subject to harassment, intimidation, and even collisions and water cannons. So the best way to show our point is to publicize it without showing the facts as they are. We're willing to discuss this and see how we can manage these tensions and events so they don't get out of hand. But still, we have to prove our point and show it.
What's your definition of getting out of hand?
Well, if they turn into some kind of violent incident, which would lead to further escalation. And that's something that I'm not saying the potential could happen. We have to try and see ways where it won't. And that's really where the challenge lies.
Out of a 10-system scorecard, what would you rate the ties between the Philippines and China?
It depends what day you ask me. As I said, we have good economic ties. They're still there. I think China is still our #1 trading partner. There are many areas of economic cooperation. Of course, we have our tensions in the South China Sea. So I think all of these factors have to be considered. But, you know, this is a very dynamic process. Hard to rate it.
Right, but to a layperson watching from his or her TV, how do we reconcile these good economic ties as well as very starkly different South China Sea tensions? How do you reconcile these two ideologies?
Well, of course, that's the big challenge because, you know, these tensions, if they are not adequately managed, will tend to spill over into other areas. And that's something we don't want. Really, all we're really asking is that we try and abide by international law. And, for example, in this case of South China Sea, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Philippines and China, our partners, our signatories, have both ratified. So it's important we just follow it. And then, if there are any incidents, we settle them in accordance with the law. And we're willing to do that. But we cannot have cases where countries do not, let's say, abide by what has been agreed in international. That creates a big problem.
Can I ask, Mr. Secretary, what is your assessment of ASEAN's level of interest and support with regard to the South China Sea, given that not all are claimant states, and among the claimant states, not all are as vocal as the Philippines?
Well, of course, some are not claimant states, so we have to understand. Maybe they may not be as vocal on that. The claimant states have been vocal in their own way. But you see, we've been saying, but they've not faced the same issues we faced. We're in our EEZ, we've been facing these incidents. And other countries may have not had that similar situation. So that's what we try and push. So as I said, each country has faced a different type of situation and tries to discuss it with our friends. But in the end, if you have language, it all has to be agreed. But it doesn't mean we don't discuss it informally on that point.
On a more forward-looking note now, very soon we'll see Mr. Donald Trump's inauguration. Under Mr. Joe Biden, the US and the Philippines have had very good military partnerships. Some of these steps include Manila's bid to buy US missiles, cooperation on the South China Sea, which could be interpreted as moves to counter China. Now, I also note that the Philippines has said, regardless of what happens, the ties between Philippines and US won't change. But in terms of the military partnership, this robust partnership, how confident are you that this will continue under Mr. Trump?
Well, much of this military cooperation, defense cooperation, is really part of our mutual defense treaty. I mean, it emanates all from there, plus various other arrangements like our visiting forces agreement. So I think these are really based on commitments which we have had with the United States for the past 75 years. And even in the first Trump administration, these continued. I believe that because these are based on commitments, on perceived common interests, that the type of relationship we'll have with the United States would continue, because they're really based on agreed commitments between both our countries.
Have the Philippine side reached out to the US side to get a sense of Mr. Trump's direction?
Well, the President Marcos and President Trump had a very good conversation where they both indicated their commitment to our alliance and our important partnership. So I think that's already a good basis to work forward on.
So that exchange gives evidence that things will be as it is?
Well, I hope the situation improves. But I think that our alliance will be maintained, of course, and that it appears we have also very common perceptions of the situation here in the region.
Are there any updates on Manila's bid to buy US missiles?
Well, all I can say is what we've read in the papers, but I just want to say that the missiles are really an attempt to modernize our defense forces, and that they would certainly be intended only to enhance our defense capabilities. That's the only reason, if that were ever to occur.
How prepared is Philippines to step up if, let's say, you have these systems and there's a regional situation that requires the Philippines to step up? How ready are you planning to do that?
We're not yet there. I think the whole idea is just to increase our capacity and our capability in the event any situation would warrant their use. But the Philippines, as even the president has always said, we are definitely committed to peace in the region, promoting peace and stability. And so any kind of upgrade, modernization of our defense capabilities are really to improve our own defensive capacities, and not for any other type of action.